Hi, I'm Paul Germain, and welcome to another session of Smart Boating. As you know, if you watched the show before, we cover a wide variety of topics from hurricane protection to man overboard. And the general idea is to provide you with some information that will help you make smarter decisions and have more fun on the water. Today's show is going to be right up that alley where we're going to talk about going boating green. And joining me is a very knowledgeable guy in that area. His name is Steve Lauber. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Paul.
Good to see you. Steve, we got a really cool show here this morning. This whole area of being environmentally sensitive, going green. Now, before we get into the show, can you share with people a little bit about your background in the environmental area and in the boating area?
Sure, Paul.
Yeah.
My day job as a modular building contractor, I've been involved in making buildings green, environmental design for quite some time.
Yeah.
In fact, 15 years ago, I achieved LEED AP status. And LEED AP is an accreditation program by the U.S. Green Building Council that promotes the safe practices and efficient practices of modular building construction.
Yes.
And certifies buildings as being green.
Okay.
A lot of those principles for building buildings also apply to boating. And so basically they focus on reducing waste, environmentally responsible practices, and reducing our carbon footprint of our environment on the water.
Okay, all right, so you've been involved in that for quite a long time, and you're a boater as well, right?
I am. I've been boating since I was in diapers.
Right.
And in that perspective, I've seen a lot of changes in the marine environment, and it adds to the importance of providing environmentally responsible practices.
Yeah, good point, good point. All right, well, you've got just the right background for the show today. So why don't we get right into it?
Sounds great.
Well, Steve, you know, this whole area of being environmentally sensitive and alert to that is a global effort right now, as you know. And it comes home to me because I look in my neighborhood to the right of me, neighbors using an electric lawnmower, across the street, electric vehicle. I talk to people there where their clothing's made out of recycled fiber, so it's in everyone's world right now, and I think it's gradually making itself into the marine world. Now, when we think about boats, the first thing would be people making the boats out of certain materials, and we've got some materials here that people are familiar with, right? This is aluminum. So aluminum's a very popular material in terms of being environmentally sensitive when you're manufacturing boats, doesn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
In fact, we're all familiar with recycling steel and aluminum. In fact, about 80% of the materials that are metal in boats are from recycled material.
Okay.
It's very common. So it's certainly something that the effects of recycling these materials reduces the effect on the environment.
Right.
Most boats are made of fiberglass.
Right.
But there's certainly some resins that are more ecologically appropriate.
Yeah,
some of the matting material is also being made out of recycled material.
And I read they're even using these flax fibers in addition to different types of resin as another alternative material. So they're really pushing that envelope a lot in terms of what materials can we recycle with maximum efficiency, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And the manufacturing process is also embracing green sustainable design with the use of low VOC paints and adhesives by controlling waste and certainly just reducing the general footprint of manufacturing boats. You used to be able to smell manufacturing facilities for boats miles away.
That's true.
And they're really improving in that respect.
Right, and they use this process called vacuum bagging now, right, where they basically insert the part and then they wrap basically plastic around, they suck the air out, right?
That's exactly one of the techniques that's been a big advancement, because as they're laying up the hull, they suck the air out of the hull
mat
material.
And the resin and all that.
Right, and it has a twofold effect. One, it makes a better product. It impregnates the wrapping a little bit better. But also you draw those vapors out, and you can filter them before expelling them into the environment.
Right, okay. So manufacturers are thinking about materials, they're thinking about improving their current techniques. How about in the area of like boat design. You know, some people feel like a tri-hull may be more efficient than a monohull. Foils, different people around the world are fooling around with foils.
Absolutely.
What's cooking in that area?
Well, there's been huge advancements in hull design, the stepped hull and drive systems, just to reduce the friction, the drag of pushing a boat through the water.
Yes.
So these high-efficiency monohull designs, multi-hulls have been recognized really for a long period of time to improve speed in racing, seamanship, and also just being more efficient to push the boat through the water with less horsepower.
Right.
What you mentioned, the foiling, and that's a relatively new development, and it started out with just small boats, but now actually larger and commercial boats are embracing this foiling technology.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, in Europe, there's a whole fleet of taxis, water taxis, that are large foiling boats that move these people efficiently from port to port for very little fuel and very comfortably.
Yeah. I think foiling is a part of the future, quite frankly. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Steve, you know, there's some exciting things going on in boat manufacturing and design, that sort of thing, and that's equally true in the propulsion side of things. We're in a little inflatable here with I guess a 4-stroke on it, right? Yamaha 4-stroke.
Right.
But there's quite a variety here at the dock of 2 strokes and 4 strokes. But there's a general migration to 4 strokes, and that's because they share some similarities with car engines, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Gone are the days of the smoky, loud 2-stroke engines.
Right.
They were inefficient, and the cloud of blue smoke that would follow you was just a sign of bad environmental practices.
That's
so
true.
manufacturers like Yamaha, Mercury, Suzuki, they've all come out with highly efficient 4-stroke engines.
Yes.
And like car engines, we become more fuel efficient and better for the environment every single day.
Right.
So we really have seen some tremendous advancements. And even more efficient than an internal combustion engine are these new electric motors that are coming out.
Yes, that's the latest. So why don't we go take a look at those?
That sounds good.
Okay. Well, Steve, electric motors are becoming more and more popular, with the smaller boats in particular, and we've got one on the back of this inflatable. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Paul. This one happens to be made by ePropulsion. There's other ones out there. Torqeedo, Mercury has one. And they are extremely boating friendly.
Yes.
I mean, they're certainly quiet. This one happens to be a 1 kilowatt unit.
1 kilowatt, yeah. How many horsepower is that?
It equates to about 3 horsepower.
About 3 horsepower.
But they're very torquey. And so in a boat like this, it moves it along quite well.
Yeah, that's the thing with an electric motor, right? An electric motor has a very flat torque curve, in contrast to a gasoline engine, which peaks. This, once you hit it, it's going to be that solid pushing power all the way through the acceleration band, if you will.
Yep, the power is immediate. It's very lightweight. It weighs about 40 pounds altogether.
Okay.
But actually, the battery does disengage from the drive unit, which makes it even easier to handle.
Oh, yeah, right.
And it's just simple enough to take it off.
Wow.
And you can carry it to your charging station and carry it separately from the propulsion unit itself.
Wow.
Makes it very easy to handle.
That's pretty cool. Now, how far will it go on a charge in general?
Well, it really depends on the speed. This is a 1,300 watt-hour battery.
Oh, yeah, right.
Which will recharge in about 4 hours when it's plugged in to AC current.
So you bring it home if you want.
Right.
Or dockside if you have an outlet.
Dockside.
4 hours, you said?
About 4 hours,
4 hours of charge,
from dead to full charge.
Okay.
Or a nice alternative is solar power.
That is a good alternative, especially when we're on that theme today.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you're, if you have it at the dock for an extended period of time, or you're cruising, you hook one of these power panels up to it.
Yeah.
And it would take about 10 or 12 hours to recharge.
Okay. It's like a trickle charge.
Yeah, like a trickle charge.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is that power is free.
That is a nice thing about it. Now, I just asked you a question of the range. That's very popular subject in people's minds. They look at an EV car, they say, well, how far can I go in it? You know, it seems to be like 300 miles, seems to be a general figure for cars.
Right.
Once we either trickle charge this through the solar adapter here, solar panel, or take it home, what sort of range? Is that a reflection of the speed at which you're operating at?
It really is very much related to the pace at which you're going. And what's nice about a boat is you have the option of going slow, where you may not on a car on a highway. So the range of this particular unit is about 50 miles if you're going very slow, say at just over idle speed.
Okay.
If you want to go faster, the range dramatically decreases.
Right.
So if you run at, say, 80% power, which we're used to running our marine engines at,
yes,
your range drops to about 10 miles.
Oh, okay.
And maybe about an hour and a half of full charge.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's still plenty of juice to get
Right.
from the dock to your boat, or from your boat to the beach,
Right.
or even small excursions.
Right. Now, is it startable right now?
Yeah, it can be started right up.
Can you do it for us?
Yeah.
All right. So you just plug in the battery. And then,
This is one power on button,
okay,
and then
little beep.
it's on, although
It
you
is.
can't tell,
Yeah.
and it's just a simple forward or reverse.
Oh. Does it have a lock or something? Or no?
Forward. Yep.
Probably does.
It didn't
yeah.
fully lock, but
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's one way is reverse, like that.
yep,
Yeah. And the other way is forward.
very simple.
wanna go very
Couldn't be
forward.
easier.
There it is. Yeah. And quiet as a mouse.
Well, which is nice, not only for enjoying the ride as you go, but if you're fishing, it's perfectly quiet. You don't have to start and stop it,
Yeah.
and it's really a nice power pack.
It's a slick deal. Very slick.
What I like about it is, too, when you go to store it, you can put it in the bilge of your boat, in a cabinet, at any angle. You don't have to worry about leaking oil and gas. It starts right up every time.
Right.
Even when it's been sitting a long period of time. Your battery may drain a little bit over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But if you top it off, it'll start right up.
Yeah.
So I really like the operational aspects of it as well as the environmental aspects
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
The other thing too about these is they are they're very much the wind and the waves is all you hear. You're not hearing an engine running,
Right.
and so you're going at a modest pace, and it's a very nice way to travel.
Yeah, I can see that. Very cool. Well, Steve, there's a slow intrusion of ecologically friendly products coming on the market for boaters. I was in the marine store the other day, and for each category there might have been 6 items, and maybe one was eco-friendly, but that's a start, right? So I thought we'd just show a couple that people may not be aware of. Here's a bilge cleaner.
Yeah, these are low impact, environmentally responsible products. They contain less of the organic solvents than in the past.
Yeah.
The VOCs.
Yes.
Which is the stuff that's really harmful for the marine environment.
Yeah.
Particularly something with a bilge cleaner.
Yeah.
Because likely the residue from this is going to end up pumped overboard into the ocean.
That's for sure, yeah. So that's one. And again, I want to make a note that we're showing products, these are just samples, but it's the concept behind them. It's not the specific manufacturer that we're talking about.
Right. And boat washes and waxes are, again, something that you're going to be applying to the hull.
Yes.
Likely washing it down.
Washing it off.
And you know where that goes. So low impact solvents and materials are very important.
Yep. How about this one? This is a head treatment. It's another aspect where a boat gets used.
Yeah, head treatment, absolutely. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But certainly these are things that you're going to be not only putting in your bilge, but you're going to be smelling.
Yes.
So the human interaction with a chemical like this is important to keep the impact low.
Okay. All right. Well, this is one that I'm not very familiar with, called Barnacle Buster, and it's supposed to, I guess, bust the barnacles in the internal systems, mechanicals, the engine, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and these are replacing some particularly nasty chemicals. They used to use these acid washes, which were effective.
Yes.
But boy, were they harsh on the environment.
I bet they
so
were.
An environmentally responsible one is a huge advancement in the green boating community.
Okay, all right, so that's a good thing for people to look for. This one here is for mildew, and again, if you wrap a boat all winter season, there's bound to be mildew, and so a lot of people are cleaning mildew in their boats, and this can make them in tune with environmental movement, right?
Absolutely. So chlorine or chlorinated products were typically used for mildew removal. They're harsh.
Yes.
They're hazardous to breathe in, and they can interact with other chemicals. So something that is sort of chlorine-free, such as this one, is a huge advancement.
Big advancement, yeah. So there's a lot of different opportunities there. And then, another thing that most people are going to think of sooner or later is paint. And paint historically has used copper, bottom paint has used copper, to kill organisms. It's very effective. But
Yeah.
the problem is it's got some drawbacks, right?
Absolutely, and copper is very effective as a biocide. It kills all kinds of marine animals and plants,
Right.
which is why it works so well at defouling your hull.
Yes.
However, that is leaching off during the course of the season
Yep.
and ending up collecting on the seabed.
Yes.
So something like these copper-free paints, although there is a bit of a premium to pay for them,
Yes.
they are just as effective and much safer for the environment.
Right, right, right. And there's a lot of different manufacturers that make them, not just this one. But the concept is getting the copper out of there to coexist with the local ecosystem, right?
That's right, because believe me, the fish, other marine life, will thank you, as well as the oysters that we're trying to introduce into the Manchester Harbor.
Good point. Well, Steve, there's a lot of interesting ways these days a boater can participate in making things ecologically safe. And but there may be some ideas they're not even aware of. And one of them is that you're holding an LED light set up there. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that might fit into this whole picture?
Sure. LED lighting is really state-of-the-art in terms of illumination on the water. Whether you're adding accessory lights or you're retrofitting your existing lighting package on your boat, LEDs are the way to go.
Yeah.
They draw 1/10 of the power. They are very bright. They burn for thousands of hours before you have to replace them. And best of all, I think, is the safety factor. They are very cool,
Right.
whereas halogens, incandescents throw off a lot of heat,
Yes.
and they're fire hazards.
Yes.
LEDs burn very cool, so it's much safer as far as operation and ecologically sound.
Right, right, right. Well, here's one that a lot of people might not have thought about. Flares. This one kind of shocked me, quite frankly. I was in the marine store the other day, and it says here that they're made of an eco-friendly formula for easy disposal. So it's one of those aspects of boating you may not automatically think of flare, ecologically conscious, but the new flares are designed to have less impact on the environment, right?
Yeah, and that's quite an advancement because flares typically use phosphorus, which is quite bright,
Yeah.
but it's also quite toxic. And these are advertised as being actually brighter
Yeah.
and better for the environment.
Yes. So that's neat. That's something, there's another corner of the marine store a boater can look in to find something that would help him be environmentally sensitive.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, Steve, once you get some of the preliminaries squared away in the spring commissioning process, whether that's reusing tarps year to year or putting on the right bottom paint or whatever it might be, there's some things to remember when you're operating during the season. And one of them seems to me that you have to recognize the fact that the newer motors are set up differently. No more carburetors, fuel injection. So you don't need to start them up and run them for any time, do you?
No, that's exactly right. The boat engines that you have on your boat are very similar, in some cases identical, to the boat's engines you have in your car.
Right.
So there really is no startup.
Right.
You start them up and you drive.
And they go.
Otherwise, you're just wasting fuel and you're having emissions.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it's also important to keep them tuned up.
Okay.
So not every season, but certainly keep an eye on things, make sure they're up to specification, and do regular tune-ups
Yeah.
every other year in some cases.
Right. Good point. So keep them in tune. Another thing that people might be able to bear in mind is if they look at a boating report, they show the efficiency of the engine at different speeds. For example, if an engine maxes out at 6,000 RPM, it's going to be a whole lot more economical by an exponential figure at 3,000, 2,800, 3,000. So people could make a conscious choice to cruise at something less than wide open if they want to have a good environmental impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of data available on specific models and engine packages where they're the most efficient.
Right.
And like you say,
Right.
they're usually just above idle speed
Yes.
or just up on a plane.
Yes.
So that your selection of speed drastically affects the efficiency of your boat and the gas mileage.
Right.
So, in fact, you can get about 3 times the miles per gallon
Yeah.
if you idle back a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
You see more.
Yeah.
And you're just saving fuel in the environment.
Right. 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 So that's a good practice. Easy to do. Another thing, of course, is if you give a little forethought to where you're going that afternoon, you can make a route that doesn't crisscross. So that is an easy thing to do. How about, we've still got some engines in the bilge, and some engines that lead into the bilge, whether through the hydraulic steering, whatever it might be. Right. What's your thought there in terms of other ways to protect the environment in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And something on your checklist before you start your engine and after you come back from your trip is to look in the bilge.
Yeah.
You know, it's just good practices mechanically and ecologically. Look for leaks, you know, oils, coolants, other things that can collect in the bilge will be obvious when you look down in there.
Right.
If you have an inboard engine, I recommend putting an absorbent pad under the oil pan, so that you can see any leaks and also contain any leaks before your bilge pump kicks on and discharges all that overboard.
Right. Well, Steve, you know, an aspect of environmental protection, of course, would be associated with the plumbing in the head of the boat. We're actually on a pump-out boat right now, right?
Right.
Yeah. How does that whole thing work, and how can people integrate into their boating to be safe in that area?
Well, the head is an obvious source of discharge, and so the Coast Guard allows you to discharge when you're 3 miles offshore.
Yep.
But instead of going 3 miles offshore and pumping out your waste tank, best practices are to take advantage of the pump-out services by marinas and by pump-out boats. The service is completely free.
Yep.
In fact, the pump-out boat will come to your mooring and pump out the boat for you. It's all subsidized by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so it's free to boaters.
Nice, nice, nice. So that's an important aspect. Easy to take advantage, but make a big difference in the environment.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple things here, a couple plastic bottles here. These are what people oftentimes refer to them as single use. You know, they crack the cap, and a big source of pollution could be people, one, using them and throwing away at home, or one, using them, two, using them and throwing them overboard, right?
Yeah, and as hard as that is to understand why people would just throw something overboard, it happens more than you think.
Right.
In fact, there's a lot of footage of these massive floating waste islands out in the middle of the ocean even. And this stuff takes a long time to degrade, decades in fact, to degrade. And so it's very irresponsible, and it's just as easy to be conscientious boaters and dispose of them properly.
Right, good point.
In fact, there's a lot of manufacturers that are collecting that waste out in the ocean and turning it into consumer products. Like this bathing suit is made from a company that collects plastics from the ocean and turns it into fabric.
And I've got some shorts here too, the same thing, recycled clothing. So that's a great way to save and have some clothing at the same time.
Absolutely.
Here's another thing that someone could use if they want to be ecologically friendly. It's a chiller pack. So the contrast to this is a big plastic bag with a lot of ice cubes in it. And when all the ice cubes melt, again, you got a big plastic bag to do with something. Here, you use it, you put it in your cooler, you bring it home, you chill it again, you can use it again, right? So you're not dumping that either in the water or on land.
Right. You're saving water, you're saving the single-use plastics that you would have associated with ice cubes.
Correct. Right. Here's another example. Again, things people may not have thought about. That's a multi-use piece of plastic. So in contrast to a single use like this is designed feature-wise and durability-wise to be used multiple times, right?
Right, and the adage from hiking and camping, you pack it in, you pack it out.
Yes.
So you take this with you, you bring it home and reuse it.
Right. It's a good way to go. Well, Steve, you know, there's a lot of things an individual boater can do to have a positive impact on the local aquatic environment. How about those that surround them in this general boating scene? People like that work for retailers or boatyards or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And boaters, you know, have control over what they do individually, but there's also an influential aspect to it. Where marinas and retailers are a consumer-driven organizations. So if you make a practice of requesting the types of products that we've highlighted today and the type of practices, they will start carrying those things. Just in the last few years, I've seen some major retailers stocking the shelves with these products that used to be hard to find. And they're bringing the delta, the premium paid for these products, more in line with the conventional products. In boatyards and marinas, they're able to achieve this green, clean marina certification, which reduces their insurance rates, and it's really the practices of them reducing the waste using better products and other environmentally sound practices.
Right, right. So individual boaters shouldn't be shy about lending their voice to their local infrastructure to help promote the whole movement, if you will.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Steve, it's hard to believe, but it's time to wrap up the show today. And we've really covered a lot of ground, you know, from what different materials boats can be made of, the different designs, the different operating speed can have on the performance of the boat, things you can do, pump out one-use plastics, a lot of stuff that people can do to brighten the environmental outlook. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close out the show today?
Well, Paul, I just wanted to thank you for bringing some visibility to this very important topic. It's in the news every day about global warming, sea level rise, and people always think, what is it I can do about that?
Right.
Can I be proactive in helping out in that regard?
Yeah.
And I think we've covered a lot of that today. With the products that are coming on the market, with the type of practices that we can employ as boaters, we can really collectively make a significant impact on the environment around us.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me today.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you, Smart Boating viewers, for joining us. If you have comments or questions or want to provide some input, visit us at our website, www.smartboatingus.com. Thank you.